Hello, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to our program, Remembering World War I. My name is Liz Crocker, and I'm a learning program developer here at the Royal BC Museum. And I'm here with Paul Ferguson, who is collections manager in the history collection at the Royal BC Museum. So we're so happy that you're here. We're going to be together about 30-40 minutes. We're going to show some slides, and we're going to have a chance. Paul's brought some objects from the collection related to World War I, and we're going to have a chance to look at them closely and do a drawing activity if you want to join in on that. And we can communicate with you through the chat. So feel free to put in there where you're from, where you're joining us from today. And there will be a chance to ask questions to Paul, so you can feel free to put those in the chat at any time. My colleague Jenny Arnold is in the room, and she's going to be helping us with the chat and also helping to keep us on time. So without further ado, I'm going to share a couple of slides to get us started. All right. So, remembering World War I. Just before we get going, I want to make sure, I know some of you are probably not from Canada or from British Columbia, so welcome. We are on the west coast of Canada, way down here, the tip of Vancouver Island at the Royal BC Museum. You can see where we are, way down there. You couldn't get any more south in Canada if you tried. And it's a very huge island if you've never been here before, and I hope you can come in person one day. It's a very, very beautiful place that we live in. Here's a shot of the museum on a lovely evening. And the museum and all of us that work here are very grateful to live and work and learn in the territories of the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations, who are also known as the Lekwungen speaking people. And they have been here forever, for thousands of years, and we're very grateful. They've just wonderfully welcoming people, and they continue to look after and care for these lands that we get to live on. So I'm gonna pass. Yes, I am. I'm gonna go right to the next slide, and I'm gonna turn things over to Paul and move out of the camera a little bit, and he's gonna talk to us about some locations, right?
Sure,
I think so,
absolutely.
in Europe that have something to do with British Columbia. And then we're gonna look at some objects. So you go right ahead there, Paul. I'm going to scoot over here.
Well, welcome everybody. Very happy that you've all managed to join in today. This is a program that I've been involved with for some while now. And I often, on my own time, travel overseas. So a lot of these pictures I've taken, and I'm very happy to share them with you and the museum that I work for. So the one thing that I would like to say is we're coming up very close to Remembrance Day in Canada. That will be on Friday. Tomorrow, where many of us will attend local ceremonies and service in remembering those that served and certainly those that had fallen. And what I want to let you know is that what you hear, this is not just a single event that occurs in Victoria. This is happening in towns all across Vancouver Island, also in the cities, also all over the province of British Columbia, across Canada and elsewhere. There's certainly commemorative ceremonies going on at this time in France and Flanders and elsewhere. So what you're seeing, it's not just local, but I will highlight the British Columbia nature of it. So what you're looking at right now is one of the cemeteries near the west coast of France at Wimel, a place called Turlington Military Cemetery, which has just about near to 4,500 war graves, or perhaps a little bit more. And I know that at the time I went here to photograph a very specific Canadian nursing sister's grave. But I chose this slide because at one point in time, a fellow named Thomas Herbert Goodland, who had was in Canada near the outbreak of the Great War. He was in Chilliwack, British Columbia, which is in the Fraser Valley, and then later came to Victoria after the Great War. Was the deputy controller of what was then the Imperial War Graves Commission. And he was responsible for ensuring that all the cemeteries were built and constructed, looking after headstones, making sure that families were able to attend different events or to help them get to the different places where their family members were buried. He worked with the War Graves Commission from 1919 to 1928. And when at its peak, he was responsible for more than 3,000 war graves on the Western Front alone. So when you think of something like this, Turlington with about 4,500 graves, some are very small churchyards, others are absolutely massive with 12,000 burials in it. This is something that we choose to remember every year. Thank you, Liz. And so when people attend these services or visit or go on pilgrimage overseas, it may be on a tour, there may be some kind of family connection. They may just have an interest, and I certainly encourage any of you, our visitors, to take part in a tour overseas. People do leave things behind. This was an image taken many years ago with some, well, these are artificial poppies that have been left behind, as well as 2 crosses from the Lady Hague factory. These are called Lady Hague crosses, poppy crosses. And I really wanted to show some other types of remembrances that the Lady Hague factory is producing, because they also have a non-denominational cross, which is just, pardon me, a non-domination, gracious, non-denominational marker, which is not a cross, it's just a simple stake. There is a Jewish one. There's also one for Muslim peoples. And it's good to know that with the War Graves Commission in particular, everything had to be uniform. Nothing was based on your rank, your creed. Everything everybody was equal in death, in passing, and that was very important. They didn't want to elevate one above the other. Sure, next slide. Thank you. One of the things that prevails all over France and Flanders, the Western Front, is certainly poppy art. So we have an example here of one of the metal markers that marks, this one is at, let me think, Saint Aloy craters in Belgium, which is a poppy that has been cut out like a silhouette almost in a metal for a stem. They've used barbed wire. And this is the common image that's used at most sites across France and Flanders. Although it is interesting that though we have adopted the poppy as our symbol of remembrance, other symbols of remembrance, such as for the French, for example, they also choose to wear a flower called oh gosh, it's a blue flower, which is going to escape me. It was right there. The Australians also use rosemary, a sprig of rosemary, which comes from the rosemaries, the shrubs that were growing out at Gallipoli. A bluet, thank you. How that worked, I'm not sure, but the French use a bluet as well, which I don't have an example of. Remembrances are, as I mentioned, are left all over the place. Sometimes they're in very obscure locations. I have spent time driving across the Western Front, pedaling across the Western Front, and walking across the Western Front. And sometimes you will see, when somebody has specialized knowledge about a certain place, they may leave something behind. So it's not just in the obvious sites that I go to. I often walk different roads, sunken roads, different trails, keeping my eyes open for something that's been left behind. However, this is one of the most heavily visited sites of the Great War. This is Hill 60 Park. And this is a relatively intact bunker from the First World War, almost the same as it was by the end of the First World War. This area was also the site of some devastation during the Second World War, so it received some extra damage. But you can also see that people have come here to visit and have left behind poppy wreaths, poppy crosses, because Hill 60 is very well known to many nations of the Allies, the British, the Australian, and the Canadians. So the Canadians in particular, this was an area, a heavily mined area as well. And Canada produced 3 different tunneling companies to put mines underground to blow up enemy trench works, of which one of those units actually came out of British Columbia. Next. Thank you, Liz. And this is just a close-up of what you saw in the opening of the bunker. Many of these things have been there, left over time. Sometimes you'll see new ones, sometimes you'll see older ones. I even spend quite some time just having a look at the different inscriptions that are sometimes left behind on these things.
Yeah, are those names of people on the?
No, these ones actually say in remembrance. I
Mm.
haven't, in this one picture, there's no there's no markings on these ones, but you can tell how long they've been there. It's been quite some time. This is a marker at the Kitchener's Wood Memorial. This commemorates the Battle of Kitchener's Wood that took place after the first gas attack on the Western Front. What occurred is when the gas was released across the Allies, it created a gap in the line. And as a result, they wanted to do the Allies wanted to create a counterattack to fill the gap that had been created by the gas. And so the 10th Battalion CEF, which is an Alberta unit, and the 16th Battalion, which is the Canadian Scottish, which is a Victoria, BC related battalion, fought in the wood. And it's still commemorated to this day. They adopted both the 10th, 16th. The 10th is now the Calgary Highlanders, and the 16th, now the Canadian Scottish, have adopted an oak leaf symbol that is still worn to this day. And there's various services within their armories that continue to commemorate that.
Look at the Canadian flags there.
One of the other things that I've always mentioned to people is that if you have a chance to go, make sure any visitors are welcome to these sites, that you attend the last post ceremony that occurs every evening at 8 p.m. at the Menengate Memorial in Ypres, Belgium. This is just one day that I visited there where the Legion was participating. There can be anywhere from perhaps not many people, which is a rarity, to several thousands of people. So when I was there in November of 2018, there were tens of thousands of people at this site.
Okay, is there one more slide?
There's more than
okay.
one.
And then we do have some questions.
Okay.
But let's get through your slides and then we'll
Sure.
look at those questions.
This is the Menengate Memorial, where the picture of the Legionnaire would have the flag held down to the ground. This memorial commemorates the Canadian missing, as well as soldiers from the British Army, Australian Army, South African, West Indies, and Indian Army. This is for all the missing in Flanders, in Belgium. And so many Canadians are recorded on the walls there, including several from BC battalions. This is the really well-known Brooding Soldier Memorial that was at still at Vancouver Corner in Belgium. Soldiers often identified areas on the map with names that they could well remember. So things like Vancouver Corner, some of the names that they gave to different sites and features were very clever. So if you remember Hill 60, there's another site at that location that they chose to call the Caterpillar. Things like that. There's also Sausage Valley, Mash Valley, and others interesting things like that. So very significant memorial. This was an example of what was to be produced across the Western Front. Eventually they chose a much simpler design, but this is heavily visited memorial, and very much right across this street from it is a dedication to the 1st Battalion, or pardon me, the 7th Battalion CEF, which is the 1st BC Regiment, where Victoria Crosses were awarded for actions during the time around the battles of Saint-Julien in April of 1915. And just a close-up, complete with some jet stream in the background. I spent a lot of time photographing this one.
It's quite a monument. I think, is that your last one?
No, there's probably one more. And then, of course, Vimy Ridge, which was dedicated in 1936. This is the Canadian National Memorial to all Canadian troops who served in the Great War, with the addition of all the names of the missing in action of the Canadian Expeditionary Force who fell and have no grave in France. And I would just add that my great-grandfather's name's on that memorial, which is what first drew me to this area in 1999.
Wow, and seeing those images really just it brings home how far away those soldiers were from home. And I think, oh, one more.
That's okay.
Another look at that moon in there. That's beautiful. And I think that, yep, that's the last one for there. So I'm going to stop. Thank you so much, Paul. I'm going to stop there, and we're going to see if we can look at some of these questions here. Oh, thanks, Jenny. Scoot down. Oh, how many people have died in World War I? What's that estimate at now? Do you remember, Paul?
Oh, geez. I knew I was going to ask, get that question asked. What have I got here? Just a moment, please. So if I remember correctly, it's about 60,000 Canadian soldiers were killed in the First World War. And that's quite a number.
That's quite a number. Yeah, it's hard to fathom any of those numbers. Really hard all the numbers for wars. It's
a very difficult thing because one of the things that you are also able to do is when you do research on this subject and you get interested in a series of specific days, you bring up the numbers, which sounds dreadful because we're talking about people's lives, people's stories. These are individual beings. And some days it says, 23 Canadians fell, 25, 100, 500. It's very, it can be very overwhelming. I've seen people overwhelmed at some of the memorials where they just have had no concept of what it's like. Yeah.
And I'm sure most of us have people in our families that have served in conflicts and wars. All right. Now, I'm going to hold up my hands. Paul, hold up your hands, please. We have our blue gloves on because we're going to touch some objects from the collection that Paul has brought for us and have a close-up look at them. So, and what we're going to do, I'll just quickly explain what we're going to do.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to switch the camera angle in a minute, and we're going to look at 3 different objects. So if you have brought paper and pencil, now's your chance. And don't worry, you're not going to have to share your drawings with anybody. This is not about being the best artist at all. All kinds of historians, archaeologists, scientists use illustration and drawing as a way to really closely look at an object. And it can just really help you really see an object closely by drawing. So that's why we're going to do it. And I'm going to use a different camera. I'm going to not tell you what the objects are. And as you're drawing them, I'm going to give you a couple minutes on each one. We're going to see how our timing's going and give you some time to sketch. And as you're sketching, you're going to think about, what is it? What might it be made of? Who owned it? What was it for? Where does it come from? Just think about what that object might be. And then we will, after that, give the objects to Paul. And he's going to, well, first we'll get some ideas from you, what you think they might be. So without further ado, because I know we're getting low on time, let me change over to this camera. And I'm going to switch that. Oop. Why is it locked on there? There we go. Okay. Let me just that. No, sorry. Okay, so all right, it's a little crooked. Get your paper, get your pencil. I'm just going to turn this for a sec, Paul, so I can see. So just go ahead, start sketching. This one's a more intricate than the other ones. Obviously, there's lots on there. Jenny might help me with the timing. I'm not timing. We're just going to give you a little bit of time, maybe about a minute. Yeah, so, and then I am going to go close, and then I'm going to do a little close up so you can have a little bit of time on a close up. Oh, somebody's mom cross stitches. I can't say whether it's cross stitch or not, because we're not going to say exactly what it is yet, but it certainly looks like a kind of stitching on there. And there's lots of beautiful colors. So yeah, have a think about who might have made that. I wonder how old it is. What's it made of? What are those materials? What was it used for? Do you think? I wonder who held this in their hands. But it's part of our history collection. That's right, Paul. It's in the history collection at the Royal BC Museum. So there's some connection to British Columbia. Now, I think I'm going to go closer. No, I'm not going to go closer yet. Jenny's giving me some time. It always feels like I'm so much time, but I'm not on the other end drawing. So, and remember, it's not about being perfect. You're just trying to get the details of what this object is. Really look closely at it. Yeah, I can't help myself. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. That's only been 1 minute. Oh my gosh, it's only been 1 minute. I think we're good though, because I think we're going to have some questions about these objects. Okay, I'm going to zoom in. So hold on. I hope I'm not going to make you motion sick. We're going to go deeper into this. So you can see, I'm going to, whoa, okay. So maybe try a close-up drawing. Give you about, I don't know, 30 seconds or so for that. Look at that stitching up close, Paul. That looks
Looks
like,
great.
that
you
looks
know?
like a lot of, if a human being created that, looks like that took some time. Maybe I'm gonna push it up a little bit, see if we can get the flower. So, right, there you go. Wow.
Might be one of those bluets.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. Amazing. Okay, so it's only been 20 seconds. All right. So just finish up your sketch. You can have like a little, if you want, a little mini close up on the side, and then you've got your overall. I'm going to zoom out again, just in, make sure you got the word. There are some words on there. There we go. Make sure you've got those words. There we go. And yeah, we'll do all three objects before we ask people what they think they are. So are you ready? We're going to go to the second object. Push that gently out of the way. Paul's watching me handle these things. Okay. So this, now this one might have a bit of glare. Jenny will tell me if it's too much glare, but yeah. There, okay, get my hand out of the way. All right, so have a draw of that. I'll try to give you at least 30 seconds.
Do you
Close,
want me to
close
add
to a
a
minute.
few things?
Yes, please, but don't give
Okay.
anything away.
No, I was going to speak to the question we had earlier, because I actually, that's one of the questions I anticipated, thought I wrote it down on my notes and did not, but I can confirm sadly that 66,000 Canadians were killed during the Great War and 172,000 were wounded. As for numbers, the worst day of the British Army, who was one of our allies during the First World War, on the first day of the Battle of the Somme, 1st of July, 1916, on that single day, the British Army lost over 19,000 soldiers.
My goodness. One day.
One day. The Somme is a very, very powerful place to walk. It just gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. I mean, that's why we have these memorial remembrance days, so we can just pause and reflect, because you can't, it's hard to take it in.
Well, all these sites had tremendous impact on people. And I remember still to this day, the first time that I was at Vimy, and one of the most, I think in August of 2018, I was also over there for the start of the end of the war commemorations, and ran into a group of people at the very large Tietval Memorial to the Missing on the Somme, which had heavily impacted one poor soul there who had no idea what they were going to see.
Oh, geez. Yeah. All right, I think I'm going to move in now and zoom in on this. I know someone's already made a guess in the chat what they think it is. We will reveal. I'm just going to go in and move it a little bit. So, but have a look at that. Oop. It's just doing a little autofocus. There we go. Okay. So again, what do you think this is made of as you're sketching? Who made it? What do you think? What do you think it's for? What material is it made of? Maybe think about what tools the person might have used to make it. I'll just give you a few seconds to finish up. I'm going to go to the next one. Okay. Carefully move that out of the way. And we've got our last object here, which might look familiar to some people. Up there again. Oh, sorry, I'm making it so crooked. There you go. Okay. Okay, I'll leave it there for now, and then we'll zoom in. So again, what do you think it is as you're sketching? You can probably see, I guess you can see when I place it there, you can kind of get an idea of the size of these objects. What do you think this is made of? What do you think it was for? Who might have owned it? And I will zoom in so we can get some detail there in a minute, but just have a sketch of this view of it. Okay, I'm going in. I'm going in a little bit closer. I can't help myself, Jenny. If there's any teachers out there, they'll know what we're struggling with. When there's silence, it feels so long. But really, if you're sketching this, you need some time to do that. Pull that down. Okay, there we go. I'll leave that on there for a bit. Wow, there's some beautiful work there. It looks like a letter in the middle. I'm sure Paul knows what that might be. We'll find out in a minute when we have the big reveal. Oh, yeah. So we're getting some comments in the chat. Thanks for your comments. Yeah, I'm not going to read them out because I don't want to give any clues yet. Because what we're going to do is we'll turn this camera off in a minute and we'll switch back to our regular camera. I'm going to hand the objects to Paul. Before he tells us, we'll get some guesses. So finish up your sketch that you're on. And if you have access to the chat and would like to put in what you think, any observations or what you think the first object was, we're gonna talk about the first object first. So let me change the camera here, Paul. Hang on a second. And I'm going to hand this first object to Paul very carefully with my blue gloves. Oh, maybe we should talk about why do we have these gloves on, Paul?
Well, we don't want to transfer anything from ourselves directly to the object. So the nitrile gloves actually protect the object from receiving any, oils from our bodies and staining the artifact or tarnishing it, or other artifacts in other cases.
So we've had a guess that this is some kind of card. Excellent guess. Excellent guess. Any others? Any ideas of what this might be? It's certainly, this is a paper product, hey? That it's
yes.
This yeah. Cross-stitched card. Yeah, thanks, Aaron. A letter to reassure someone.
Interesting.
A sign. Yeah, it could be like a sign. You put it on your wall. What does it say? It's the cursive, Paul. Not all of us can read all kind thoughts. For those of you who don't know cursive writing, I wonder if was it hard for you if you don't know how to read cursive writing? Embroidery to make others feel good. It could be all those things.
It could be all those things.
What? Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, this is do I actually need to say what it is now?
Go ahead. Yeah, and you can
so
hold
this
it up
is
to the camera if you want.
This is a postcard that was commonly produced during the Great War for sale as souvenirs to the troops. Many of these were never actually postally used. They were sent home as souvenirs. They're pretty much all custom made, sharing similar designs, but they can be everything from something floral in nature, something very patriotic, all kinds of different hand letterings, something to Merry Christmas, Forget Me Not, Love from Your Father, so on and so forth. And this one was postally used and was actually sent to a lady in Kelowna, British Columbia, likely from a relative. And so this was a whole cottage industry for people in France and Flanders, making these kind of things. Thousands upon thousands of these have survived. As I mentioned, they can be regimental. They can feature poppies. They can feature doves of peace. They can feature baskets overflowing with flowers, airplanes. Really, they show the creative work of the hand stitcher themselves.
Can you flip it again and maybe just show them, hold it a little bit longer on that writing on the, maybe put it a little closer to the camera. All right. Trying to hold it. Yeah.
Hopefully it'll.
It's not really a letter there. Hey, there's just, they've written there.
It looks like what was happened is this was likely, this has been mailed technically. They didn't cancel it though. The stamp is free of cancel.
So that went through the mail.
Well, it either went through the mail or he thought secondly about it and then stuck it in another envelope and sent that one home, because these have been saved by literally by the thousands.
Yeah.
And though it's a common thing, it's when you see what they've written on the reverse in some cases that can be very, very powerful.
I'm sure. Yeah. All right. Hand that over to me very gently. I'll put it over here. Second object. Any guesses what the second object was? And Paul's going to show us the other side of this object because
Do you want
there's
that
some
now?
interest. Well, hang on a second. Let's get a couple of guesses. A knife. Someone's guessed a knife. No, somebody said that was very neat cursive. It was. That was Kathy. Thanks, Kathy. A knife, a copper knife. Interesting. They've guessed it's made of copper. Okay.
And
So,
brass too.
okay. So it is copper.
It
There
is copper and brass as well.
and brass. Okay. You go ahead and tell us about the knife.
So this is
Thanks,
actually
everybody. A
this
throwing
is-
knife, a ritual knife. Sorry, Paul. I'm just saying, oh, okay. A throwing knife, a ritual knife.
No, those are all.
It's like a letter
you-
opener.
Anytime that you participate in something like this, I find it shows interest,
Mhm.
and interest is to be encouraged.
Mhm.
This is what is known as trench art. This is something that's been fashioned from a piece of a projectile called a driving band, which is a little copper bit that goes around near to the base of a projectile. And what they did is they spent an unbelievable amount of time hammering them straight, flattening them. And then what we see on the other side is the inscription that's been put on there, which of course now I think it says Passchendaele and Vimy. And pardon me, I can do this.
And then we'll hold it
Plug,
up.
Steert, Yper, and the Psalm. So this is the original part of the driving band. That's what you would actually see on the projectile.
And what's it? Sorry, what is that? What is it like by
A
a
projectile is the, see, I need a picture of one of these things, don't I? That is the actual, shall we say, bullet that was shot from one side to the other to destroy the enemy,
Yeah.
right? A lot of them were shrapnel shells, which were filled with probably 400 lead shrapnel balls that were the shell was created in such a way that it exploded in the air to release these devices to create as much harm as possible. And the driving band was a feature on the projectile to stop. It's a complicated process about buildup within the barrel of the gun. And they salvage this copper often. Even these two little pieces here that look like horns, these are bullets, rifle bullets that have been bent into the shape, but commonly used as a letter knife.
Yeah, try to hold that up.
See if we can get
See,
that.
yeah, there we go. That's a little bit, there's a bit of reflection, but you can.
So you can see Vimy Ridge is there. Plug Steert, which is well-known, well, there's Plug Steert Churchyard, which is near Kemmel in Belgium, which is the site of some of the first BC casualties of the Great War.
And Kathy's asking how many bullets were made to make it. Is it the bullets or just these pointy bits here?
There's only the two.
Okay.
So there's one here and a second one here.
And so this was made by a soldier in a trench?
It could have been made by a soldier in a trench. There is 4 types of trench art. So you have trench art that's made by people who were in the trenches. You had people who were prisoners of war. There was a whole commercial aspect to it. So literally soldiers were, after the war, were encouraged to, oh, if you have a souvenir, we can help you by creating a plinth for it and creating an inscription on something. And just they turned things into, they took brass shells, or pardon me, brass casings from the artillery pieces and turned them into dinner gongs and all kinds of things. They turned them into lamps. It's extraordinary that these things that were represent so much destruction also were very popular as souvenirs to retain.
So interesting question from Kathy. So she's asking if it's only 2 bullets, what was the rest of it made from? But that's what you're talking about.
All of this is a copper driving band.
Of this
Maybe
shell
I could
or-
draw a picture of it. How's that? I'm going to let you hold that
Could you draw
for
a
a
picture
second.
of it? Okay, well, this is
And,
exciting. And I was just thinking we could possibly share it afterwards. We will be sharing an email address. People could connect with us with email. Great idea, Jenny. Jenny's just suggesting I pop this under the document camera. Let's see, I know it's not going to take too long. I know we're getting low on time. Everything is backwards. Apologies. Okay. There we go.
Are you ready for this?
Okay, I've just got this out there. Just hang on a second, Paul. Let them see that. So Vimy Ridge, we can see. There. Okay.
And the Battle of the Psalms on there as well.
Okay, right at the very end. That says Battle of the Psalms. All right. Okay, we're gonna switch back so we can see Paul's
My work of
drawing.
art. I didn't know I was doing art today.
Yeah, okay.
So it's not great, but there you get the idea. The top uppermost part is known as the shell or
A
the
little
projectile.
closer. Sorry. Yeah.
And then you can see that one line near the bottom of the shell, that is the driving band. And then this casing is made out of brass. And these can be really, really big. I mean, they can be anything from, let's say the average, size of a shell might be maybe 24 inches, but they can, when you get to railway guns, they could be absolutely huge. And that everything was turned into, loads of things were turned into trench art, whatever they could get a hold of.
Wow. Wow.
So I hope that was
Thanks,
helpful.
Paul. That is helpful. Thank you. Okay, last object, just moving along because we're getting low on time. So I see someone has already put in, they guess, an award or a medal, a royal medallion to honor Canadian soldiers. Thanks, Aaron. Great guesses. And this over here. Right, Paul,
okay.
there you go. All right. Tell us
So
about this.
this is, shall I identify it?
Yes, go ahead.
This is the Canadian Memorial Cross, also known as, during the day as the Silver Cross for mothers. It's actually given to mothers and wives, and now in more modern times, it can be given to widowers, other members of the family, for soldiers who were killed in action, died of wounds, missing in action, or died of disease while in service. And so what you see in the center, which I'll hold up very, very closely, and it'll focus, we think.
I might have to put that under the document camera
Okay.
too. You keep talking.
That is the royal cipher of King George V. You'll notice that it had maple leaves and a wreath. I'll just show one more thing though.
Oh,
On the
okay.
reverse.
Hold on. I've switched cameras. Bear with us. There we go.
On the reverse, it is inscribed with the regimental number, rank, and name of the soldier that it commemorates, and it's made of sterling silver. These are still awarded to this day. These were given to families for Afghanistan.
Hang on. So I couldn't see it there. There.
It was
Okay.
first introduced in December of 1919 and was actually adopted, a different version of it, slightly different version, by New Zealand in 1947. And in 2009, the Elizabeth Cross for the United Kingdom was created. And so these you can see certainly for Canada for the First and Second World War. The soldier that we have commemorated here is Harold Lawson Freeman, who was from British Columbia and served in the 46th Battalion CEF. And he lost his life on the 13th of April, 1917. At something that is called the Pimple. You will recall that I mentioned that soldiers come up with interesting names for things. And one part of the Battle of Vimy Ridge, one of the landscape features was called the Pimple. And this memorial cross was sent to his mother, Ida. So it's something that if you don't see them often now, but at one time they were a little bit more prevalent. But if you come to Victoria, I know you'll see one or two here from Afghanistan.
My great aunt received one that was way back in the 40s for her son. So thank you so much, Paul. We are almost out of time, and I just want to share a couple of things. And we are sharing an email address. So I bet you if anybody has any additional questions, we could, in learning, could get those questions to Paul, and I'm sure he'd be happy to answer them. Still Paul's, there we go. Okay, so we have a learning portal. This is a real, you could Google it, Royal BC Museum Learning Portal, or go to rbcm.ca/LP. And Jenny's putting some links in the chat right now. We've got some wonderful content in there about British Columbia's contribution to World War I. We also have some content on the Learning Portal about Aboriginal Veterans Day, which was on November 8th. And a lot of people don't know about that. That's the date in Canada. I'm not sure what it is in the United States. It's where we honor Aboriginal veterans who unfortunately were not recognized the way other veterans were. And so there's a separate day to gain recognition for Indigenous veterans. Hopefully one day it'll all be the same day, but right now it's November 8th to raise awareness for Indigenous veterans. So I encourage you to look at all that wonderful material we have on the Learning Portal. If you live near Victoria by chance, some of you, the IMAX Theatre has some movies related to the war happening this weekend. So you can go to imaxvictoria.com for showtimes. There's 3 different movies they've got playing. And thank you for joining us. If you want to book a digital field trip with us, we do all kinds of different programs. There's information on our website. There's the Royal BC Museum website right there, digital field trip page. And there's that email address, DFT, short for digital field trip at royalbcmuseum.bc.ca. You can let us know if you have any questions for Paul, for follow-up questions. And also if you just want more information about anything at the museum or our programs, that would be wonderful. I'd love to hear from you. So I'm going to stop sharing, see if there's any last minute questions, and we're almost out of time. Nope, I think we're good. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us, everybody, today. And I hope you get a chance tomorrow on Remembrance Day to go to some of the ceremonies that are probably happening around where you live, and and even if you don't, to have a moment of reflection, to recognize just the sacrifice that is so hard to fathom, that so many people, not just Canadians, people all over the world, gave of themselves and their lives in World War I and other wars. Paul?
Well, that was said very eloquently. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.
All the best.
Okay, bye-bye.